Sound check. Hey guys, it's good to see you guys. I'm Dr. Nathan Thompson with the Wellness Way Yorkville. Happy Monday, guys. Hope you guys had a fabulous weekend. Speaking of fabulous, fabulous after 40. That's the title of tonight. And so if you're a woman watching right now and not feeling super hot, you're over 40, I'm going to show you some of the most common complaints that women have and really where you need to start looking at when it comes to testing. And in addition to that, maybe some things that you can do in order to start looking at things from a different perspective. So, guys, right now we're broadcasting live to Facebook, to YouTube, and to the Rumble platform. So if you're watching right now, just say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. I always appreciate to know where people are watching from. I know that we have longtime listeners, longtime lurkers, but let me know, if you're watching, if you are, just say hello. It just always helps me out. And also where you're watching from as well. So how to feel fabulous after 40. Okay. So ladies, pay attention to this. And if you're a woman and you're not feeling super hot, you're over 40 years of age, then this event, you're from the Chicagoland area, this event is just for you. So this is our approach to inflammation event. This is our next one's going to be Tuesday, August 12th, which is a week from tomorrow at 6:00 p.m. Guys, this is an in-person event. I think if you watch this video, you're going to say at the end, wow, I just need some help. I need some guidance. I need some direction. Whether you're having issues with weight loss, cancer, infertility, hormone issues, thyroid disease, arthritis, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune condition, hormone problems, all of these are tied to inflammation. Inflammation is the spark, guys, that leads to every chronic degenerative illness that's out there. Who says so? Not even me. Actually, medicine agrees with that. However, we take a different approach with how we are actually handling that. So if you are from the Chicagoland area, you want to work with our office directly, then just get to that inflammation event Tuesday, August 12th at 6:00 p.m. Very easy to get registered. All you have to do is just go to our socials. You'll see that Linktree profile. Click on that, and then you'll see the inflammation event. It'll pop up first. You even see it jiggle a little bit so to get your attention. And if you go there, you click on that. It's free to register. Take you 60 seconds to register, and a member of my team will be reaching out to you just to confirm your attendance at that event. that's a huge eye opener too, when you start looking at things from a lot different perspective, especially when it comes to inflammation and how everything responds to that. Okay. Now, I love talking about wins for the week. Wins for the week. It's very easy when you're in practice and you just, sometimes, yes, you do get beat down just a little bit. And this is true for any doctor, anyone who is in practice. However, I want to talk to you about a personal win for the week, because last week, if you watched, I said I was, in the first day of doing a 3-day fast. Well, I completed the 3-day fast, and I've been on a strict no sugar diet for the last 8 days. I'm coming up to 9 days pretty soon, and I will do this for a whole entire month. No, I'm not pre-diabetic. I just pulled my labs. I'm not pre-diabetic. However, I do that to make sure that I'm not ending up there. That's called prevention. So I have been on a no sugar diet for 8 days, and I also, leading up to that, completed a 3-day fast. So um, that's a win that I will take. And in addition to that, clinically, we just had a woman that we saw who had lost 40 pounds over the course of a couple of months, doing absolutely awesome and fantastic. And so, but this is also someone, pay attention to this too. When I talk about this coming up on this live broadcast, someone who had the common complaint of, I can't lose weight. And then she had a pretty big revelation when we really kind of figured out some of the things that were going on. So I will be doing no sugar for the next, 21 days or so. And yes, you will do that. And I just finished up an in-body body fat scan. I will do it again, after I finish up the 28 days. And just so you know, I am over 40. So I'm 48 years of age, but I'm not in a hurry to feel like absolute garbage right around that time, like a lot of my peers. So huge win for the week. So just pray for me during that process that I can not only stay strong, but be able to finish it as well. So fabulous after 40. So pay attention to this, because there's just so many people who they don't feel right after 40 years of age. And I'm going to show you the labs on really what you need to be focusing on, especially if you are a woman. So I wrote down just some of the common complaints that women have that I see over 40 years of age. And I will say, yes, majority of my patients are women. I would say majority of those women are over 40 years of age. So here's just some of the most common things that they complain about. Number one, perimenopause. Now, I will tell you this, guys, there's no medical term that really defines perimenopause, but it just seems like 5 years ago, everyone thought they had a parasite. Now everyone thinks they're blaming everything on their hormones and perimenopause. I've had women in their early 30s already blame it on perimenopause. And guys, it's not to discount the fact that you might not be feeling very good. However, I want you to know something. Menopause is a transition that every woman's going to go through in life. And if you are working on these things, this will just help you help the transition to become that much easier. So common complaints in women over 40, perimenopause, weight gain, fatigue, joint pain, and poor sleep. So a lot of these things have a lot to do with some of the things that I'm going to be talking about on tonight's broadcast. So just as an FYI, I want you guys to know something. This is my beautiful, lovely wife, Barbara. She'll hate me because I'm bringing this up, but I want you to know something. My wife is over 40 years of age. I want to tell you how old she is, but yes, she is over 40 years of age. And wow, she looks incredible. She's had 4 kids. She works out 4 days a week. She can walk on her hands. She is absolutely incredible. And in fact, she's doing no sugar with me right now as well. And she doesn't complain as much as me either. So she does the right things. And in fact, it's one of the biggest reasons why I believe that she has done the right things for a long period of time, why she's been able to conceive and have a healthy baby boy after 40 years of age. Because most of the time women think of pregnancy over 40 as just some kind of terminal illness or anything like that, but no problems, no issues. And she's doing absolutely awesome. She's doing wonderful. But the biggest thing I'm going to tell you is that I am leading her in the right direction. The problem is There's a lot of doctors that aren't leading their patients, their women patients, in the right direction. And there's a lot of doctors that are just giving a lot of women just a lot of bad advice when it comes to that. Now, speaking of, leading people in a bad direction, I had a woman who came to me not that long ago. She came to me and she said this, "Oh, Dr. Nate, I have so much inflammation. It seems like everything that I eat just inflames me." She says, "I like being active. I like playing pickleball, but every time I play pickleball, man, it's just to do high impact type activities. I don't feel so hot. I just feel really, really, bad." And so she was taking some very powerful non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, for that, but she just couldn't figure out why she just didn't feel very good. So this is actually her x-ray. This is her x-ray that we took, okay? So I want you to notice a couple of things. Number one, if you're going to notice, you're going to see a pretty substantial scoliosis into the lower part of the back. So this is her left hip. Here's her right hip. Here's the lower part of the back. These are the bones in the lower back going up into the rib cage. And you can see a very substantial scoliosis in this position. And anytime that we see that, we'll look at leg length inequalities. And so we shot an x-ray straight through her hips. And you can see, if you look at this, there's over a centimeter difference between left side and right side. So her right side is 1 centimeter longer on the right than it is on the left. Now, here's the other thing. She also was seeing a chiropractor too, which just makes me wonder. I'm like, why aren't we checking this? Because if you think about it, every single high impact activity was just destroying her. And so if you look at this, she's not bearing weight equally between left side and right side. And that's actually causing her spine to try to adapt to that. So you see the spine going into a scoliosis, abnormal weight bearing. And then you see the spine trying to right itself with gravity to go back up. So that's one of the first things that you look at, like, this is not right. And you know what? Adjusting this person more often is not necessarily going to help. So this person is going to need some lifting, probably putting in like a heel lift in her left side, because you're not going to be able to grow that bone. Again, you're not going to be able to grow that. You're not going to be able to adjust that out either, because this is a physical leg length inequality while this person is actually standing. But the other thing I noticed at too is that if you look right here, and yes, we didn't make her take her bra off. All right. So all of you radiology experts, but you see this right here, and these are surgical staples because she had also had her gallbladder out. So he had her gallbladder removed. But the interesting thing is, the doctor never told her to do anything different when it came to how she would be able to break down her foods, particularly fats and things like that. So I guarantee you, when we run some testing on her, some further testing, she'll probably have a lot of inflammatory reactions to a lot of foods that contain a lot of fat. And yes, we'll be getting some food allergy testing done. We'll also be getting probably some stool testing done, probably be looking at blood sugars and things like that. But the thing is you can see there's already physical stressors that are taking place. You already can see that there's chemical stressors taking place. You know that there's going to be some level of dysfunction taking place anytime that you remove an organ and you don't do anything to support it long term. So this is one of the biggest things I want people to understand is I don't want to give a man a fish. I'd rather teach him how to fish. That's why, with our approach, this is what I tell people. I want you to get this testing, and I'll take you through the process and what you can do in order to start improving your life, improving your lifestyle. And depending on your test, it all depends on what you need to be on. It all is dependent on, how you should be exercising. All that's dependent on testing. But one of the things I always say is I don't want to keep going over this. So I want you to fix it. I want you to know why. And then I also want you to be able to, at some point, be able to take care of yourself. And that's called teaching someone how to fish. Now, it's going to be up to you in order to make those changes. Does everybody make those changes? No. I'll give you a perfect example of someone who didn't make those changes. All right. So I had a woman, and I won't go into any detail for privacy or anything like that, but she wasn't doing what she was supposed to. And she had some pretty unrealistic expectations as far as what was supposed to happen to her body. And she had some pretty choice words by me. If you don't believe me, go to our Google reviews. But I looked at her profile on Google when she left a really nasty review. And all I saw was she was taking pictures of all the things that she was eating when she wasn't supposed to be eating that. So you can see all kinds of processed carbohydrates, processed carbohydrates, processed carbohydrates. And let me tell you something. She was not supposed to be on those things for a multitude of reasons, but she was, and she was eating those things, taking pictures of it and putting it on her Google reviews. And so I knew that she was just flat out lying to me. So, and I have people who they'll just flat out lie to me and like say they're doing some things and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. But then I have people who do exactly what they're supposed to do and they always get clinical results. So, this person, you can guarantee if they are eating this type of food and they're putting it on their Google review, Lord knows they're doing a bunch of other sassy things when they're not reviewing them on Google. So, just goes to show you is that, there's just a lot of people that just aren't truthful with what they should be doing when it comes to changing their lifestyle. So I would actually say this because a lot of times people reach out to me and they ask me, you might be like, what supplement do I need to be on to help with perimenopause? Or what do I need to do in order to, what supplement? And one of the biggest things I'll tell people is this is please don't ask for an oil change when in reality, you need an engine overhaul. And yes, there are a lot of people who come in who need a complete engine overhaul. And all they think is just, fill up their gas tank with, 87 octane fuel. And then they think that everything is going to be just hunky dory. So many times when you see a lot of these issues that are going on that I'm going to go over with you in just a second, really it is about, overhauling the engine because, the people come to me over 40 and they have so many problems and so many long-term issues in which they just beat up their body and they expect there's just to be one little change in their life is going to be hunky-dory. But in reality, when you look at it, that's typically not the case. So here's 4 things that I want you to look for, especially when it comes to feeling fabulous after 40 years of age. 4 things to look for. I'm going to go over each one. Number 1 is your cortisol pattern or your cortisol rhythm. Number 2 is blood sugar and insulin. Number 3 is thyroid dysregulation. Number 4 is sex hormone balance. And I'm going to show you some labs in regards to that and why some of these things can start to get wonky and some of the things of where you need to start in order to start righting the ship. Okay. Now, first thing let's go over cortisol balance or cortisol rhythm. So if you look at this is a Dutch test, dried urine total comprehensive hormones. One of the best way in order to measure cortisol. And guys, I don't care how you cut the cake. Cortisol has been demonized by so many influencers. Cortisol is not a bad hormone. Your body's not making a bad hormone. Your body's not trying to destroy you, trying to kill you. Cortisol is your get up and go hormone. However, can it be unbalanced? And the answer is yes, 100%. Absolutely, it can. And in fact, when you talk about cortisol rhythm, this is how your adrenal glands release cortisol throughout the day. So let me show you this. So normally, if you look at cortisol, it should start to elevate in the morning. This is actually what should wake you up. And then you're going to notice that in late morning, it's supposed to elevate to its highest. And then it's supposed to taper off into the afternoon and then be at its lowest level at night so you can go back to sleep. Remember, cortisol is your get up and go hormone. And in fact, that's why they call it, when cortisol elevates in the morning, they call it the cortisol awakening response. So if you look at this person should be within the black lines if they have a normal cortisol rhythm. But if you look at this person, they wake up, it's high, sky high in the late morning, still high in the afternoon, and then it absolutely just tanks at night. Then if you look at this person's total cortisol production, known as metabolized cortisol, you can see that this person was just, it was unbelievably, it was just incredibly high. So if you have a high amount of cortisol that you are metabolizing or your total production throughout the day, then here's some of the issues that you have going on. It's either high stress or elevated blood sugars. And the reason why is if you can't control your blood sugars very effectively, then one of the things that helps to start to mobilize sugars within the blood is a hormone known as cortisol. So this is why, like if you fast for an extended amount of time, you'll notice your cortisol levels will go really elevated because it's trying to mobilize blood sugars in order to try to get that up. And that's why sometimes when people fast, after the second day, they may have problems with sleep and things like that. So this woman, if you look at this, how stressed out this woman is. And this person was carrying a tremendous amount of mental stress. And you could see that by looking at this Dutch test, a tremendous amount of mental stress. And mental stress, yes, it's called the fight or flight response. And if you have mental stress, guys, your body doesn't differentiate between a real or perceived threat. So you'll have the same response as if you're stressed out about work, if you're stressed out about your family, and you'll have the same stress response if a bear is actually chasing you. So this is why this person had a tremendous amount of mental stress that's going on. And this is why, guys, if you have a tremendous amount of mental stress, or if you can't get your blood sugars under control, it's going to be really hard when it comes to balancing your cortisol levels, number one. But number two, you're also going to see other issues when it comes to if you're still cycling with your menstrual cycle issue. This woman also had a tremendous amount of hot flashes and things like that. And these things actually got better when the stressor went down and her cortisol levels went down too. So that's why mental stress, guys, can be an absolute killer. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. If you look at the mental stress response, you will see tremendous changes take place when it comes to your gastrointestinal health, gastrointestinal function, digestion, all those different things. And this is why, guys, you got to start getting your cortisol under control. Okay. Number two is your blood sugar and your insulin levels. And when I say your blood sugar, it does not lend itself all that much to look at, your fasting blood sugar, although you can gain something from it. But this is why I say look at your 90-day blood sugar average, otherwise known as your A1C, and also look at your insulin levels. This is very, very, very important because I've seen people who you would not consider overweight have extremely elevated A1C and also elevated insulin levels as well. So how do you get that under control? Well, this is helping with stressors. There's no doubt about it. But this is also why most people really need to be getting off of sugar. Holy cow, they need to get off of sugar. In fact, I had a wonderful woman who had an appointment today, and she's lost 40 pounds. And she said, I can't lose weight. So we looked at, some of her labs. We saw, hey, high A1C, higher insulin levels. I said, you really need to be on a no sugar diet. And so she started following that to a T. Wonderful, wonderful person. And she's lost 40 pounds over the course of about, 90 days or so. So generally speaking, not taking into account the nuance of looking at, things like, immune responses to food, total digestion, or anything like that. But if you were generally speaking, eat meats and veggies, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no added sugar. You should keep your intake to support exercise, but not body fat. So think of this: eat meats and veggies, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no added sugar. And this is where people are missing the boat quite a bit. And you should have an intake to support exercise, but not body fat. And this is why, guys, so many people put on so much body fat and they think that I don't understand why this is happening. And in reality, they're just eating way too much. And one of the easiest ways to eat way too much is to be eating processed sugar because it doesn't take up a whole heck of a lot of volume. It's very easy to overconsume, overeat that. My goodness, I was talking to this, my wife, just the other day, and, we were looking at, this iced coffee drink, just laughing about it, because this iced coffee drink had 900 calories that were in it, tons of sugar and things like that. My wife looked at this. She's like, man, I wonder how many ladies drink this thinking that it's healthy when all it is just a massive sugar bomb. And then they wonder why they're starting to gain weight. So meats and veggies, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no added sugar. Keep your intake to support exercise, but not necessarily body fat. And I want to give you a clinical example because here's a woman who came in who had gained weight, had very, very low, poor energy, had a lot of breathing problems and things like that. And if you look at this, her hemoglobin A1C, which we measured, was in the diabetes range. So this person had type 2 diabetes. You can see her insulin levels were sky high. I mean, because the insulin levels really shouldn't be any more than 5 or so. And you can see that hers were at 13.3. So she was insulin resistant. So she's got a high insulin response, can't get her blood sugars down. She's not responding to insulin. You can see ferritin levels climbing up and getting elevated, which can indicate hanging on to a lot of stored iron, which can indicate a fatty liver. And her triglycerides were extremely high too, which just means that basically she's just over consuming food, she's over consuming sugars, and the body is just in a mode where it's just packaging up those fats. So this is why you have to start paying attention to your A1C and to your insulin levels. So number 3 is thyroid dysregulation. Let me say something about thyroid dysregulation, because if someone feels like garbage, they think it's always their thyroid. They always think it's their thyroid. And I'm like, that usually is not the case. There's something else that's going on. But I want to give you a clinical example of someone who had a thyroid issue and, yes, didn't feel super hot, didn't feel, the best, but it wasn't because of her thyroid. And in fact, here's a clinical example of someone with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and she was able to get off, with our help, was able to get off of completely thyroid medication, even though there's been immune destruction to her thyroid. So if you look at this was about 2 years ago. And even when we started measuring some of those things, you can see, because she had been on thyroid medication for 20 years. And you can even see some clues that the doctor was actually over medicating her, because you can see a high T4 total, a high T3 free and total, T3. And then you can see, if you look 2 years later, you can see this is actually off of any kind of thyroid medication. And so, oh man, but we just did the right things, worked with her. Her doctor listened and was able to finally get her off of the medication. But the interesting thing is, one of the reasons why this can cause some thyroid issues is actually because she was having an immune response to her thyroid. In fact, if you go through the whole, of when we were measuring these things, you can see she had some slip ups. There's no doubt about it. Nobody does it perfectly. You can see that there's some areas where it started to get worse. Although one of the reasons why it got worse was this: when you see it get worse, this was when there was a big immune system insult. And yes, she traveled abroad and went and got a bunch of vaccinations. And now you saw her thyroid antibodies just go through the roof, as well. And so despite that, doing some things in order to calm it back down, you can see that normal thyroid function, even despite the fact that there's probably been long-term destruction, but she still has enough thyrocytes or thyroid cells that are still there to be able to make sufficient thyroid hormone. Sometimes women have enough thyroid left in order to make sufficient thyroid hormone, but that's not always the case. So you need to start looking at your thyroid. You need to start testing this properly. So when you look at thyroid dysregulation, and I could talk about this for about 9 hours, but basically any kind of thyroid issue is either going to be one of 4 things, sometimes even more than that too. So it can be a production issue, meaning that the thyroid just doesn't have the right nutrients and the right raw materials to be able to make thyroid hormone. And yes, this can also be a response to chronic inflammation. It can be a response to high amounts of stress, but you just may not be getting the right nutrients. And this is an amino acid based hormone, which is why protein is going to be so important. Protein digestion. Things like iron are going to be important. Things like iodine, yes, are going to be important, but it's rarely the case when it comes to that. This can also be a conversion issue as well. And this is why, doctor may give you T4 and your T3 levels, which is your active thyroid hormone, it's just too low. And so this can be a liver issue. So this can be due to fatty liver. It's also going to be a gastrointestinal issue. Some of it's converted within the kidneys as well. So this can be a conversion issue in which the body is having a hard time converting T4, which is going to be Synthroid or levothyroxine, into the active usable form known as T3. It also may be an immune system issue, and that's where you would call Hashimoto's thyroiditis, in which you have the presence of antibodies, which means there's been some level of thyroid destruction, which means that a lot of your hypothyroid can be due to an immune system issue. But just remember this: doctors aren't doing anything about it. They're just giving you hormone rather than look at the immune system to see what's going on. This can also, doesn't happen very often, can be an interference issue. So what that means is there may be certain halides that might be interfering with it. That would be like bromine and fluorine. Now, this is one of the reasons why I don't recommend fluoridated toothpaste. I don't recommend brominated vegetable oil or certain citrus flavored drinks that contain bromine, because they interfere with the uptake of iodine within the thyroid, which is needed in order to produce hormone. You may have a pituitary tumor that can cause things to look really crazy, really out of control. And yes, I've seen that clinically. And then also mercury. So fillings within the teeth that are contained, the dark fillings, 50% elemental mercury, those are stable when you put them in, but the older they are, the more they break down, the more they start to chew, and it will start to off-gas mercury that you're going to start to breathe in. So all of these things, in fact, look at this. This is actually found in PubMed, where they say that mercury can be a major interference when it comes to normal thyroid function. And so production, conversion, immune interference, all those things can be reasons why you might have some level of thyroid dysregulation that's going on. And guys, the only way to know is to get it properly tested, and you need more than 2 or 3 markers. You need to be looking at multiple markers in order to try to figure out, here is the reason why. We talk about this all the time on social media, and man, do endocrinologists just hate it. Well, maybe the reason why they don't test this properly is because they don't have a medication for that in order to start looking at the reason why. They have one medication to give you hormone, that's it. And so that's why they're not interested in actually testing for things a little bit deeper, okay? Number 4, you need to go over sex hormone imbalances. This can play a huge role as well. So just remember this: high amounts of stress that are affecting blood sugars, that can cause some sex hormone imbalances. What I mean by sex hormones, we're talking about, things like estradiol, progesterone, and all of the metabolites of estradiol. You guys know that there's more than one estrogen in the body. So you got estrone, estriol, estradiol, and then you have all of the water soluble and metabolites of it. And then you also have all of the methoxy metabolites of it as well. So you have more than one estrogen, just so you know that. But stress can play a huge role, and elevated blood sugars can cause a huge role in sex hormone imbalance. Here's something that a lot of people don't consider that much: is elevated beta glucuronidase. And you're like, Dr. Thompson, you're using really, really big words. And I'm like, I know, I'm sorry. But elevated beta glucuronidase is a lab marker that you can see on a stool test. And if your beta glucuronidase levels, if they're elevated, then one of the things that will happen is yes, you can metabolize your hormones, and basically they're metabolized in the liver. They go to the gallbladder, and then they're released as they're metabolized in the gastrointestinal system. But if you have really elevated beta glucuronidase, then one of the things that it will do is it will cleave off those hormone metabolites for reabsorption again. And this is why, yes, even your gastrointestinal system can cause some issues when it comes to estrogen dominance or something like that. And then you also have your liver that's responsible for converting these hormones, either for removal or to convert them into weaker forms. And the only way to really know that is by properly getting a Dutch test. But one of the biggest things that can really cause problems when it comes to liver conversion issues is just the presence of fatty liver, because it's going to slow down liver function. So if you have a fatty liver, it's causing issues with the liver. And guys, the number one cause of fatty liver is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And this is really due to the overconsumption of processed carbohydrates and fructose and things like that. It's no longer due to alcohol or chronic alcohol, though that can be a source, but it's usually just due to the fact of what we are eating that's causing fat deposition, not only underneath our skin and our visceral tissue, but also within the liver as well. So this is why you really have to start paying attention to your liver, and also the types of foods that you're eating as well. So I went over those 4 things that you really need to start looking at. So you may be asking this question. And in fact, a lot of times too, if you're a woman over 40 and you're not feeling very good, then this may cause a little bit of stress. And you may be asking the question, what do I do? Where do I need to start? Oh my goodness, this is me. Dr. Nate, you've been talking to me the whole time. Now I just need some kind of plan. I just need some kind of help when it comes to that. Where do I start? What do I need to do? Well, don't worry. I'm going to tell you what you need to do. Number 1, work with the Wellness Way doctor. Please, guys, work with the Wellness Way doctor, because when you ask me, what tests do I need to get? When you ask me, all those different things, these are tests that Wellness Way doctors work with all the time. And so work with a Wellness Way doctor. Where do I find a Wellness Way doctor? Go to our link tree and you'll find how to find a Wellness Way doctor in one of the links, because there's Wellness Way doctors all across the continental United States. But work with the Wellness Way doctor for this reason: to get the appropriate testing, to get the appropriate plan, to start to implement the right type of lifestyle, and also getting appropriate follow-up. Okay. This is so important, because I will tell you this: doctors may say, well, you need to start eating this way, but they're not going to sit down with you. They're just going to tell you, and they're going to leave it to you in order to figure this out. One of the biggest strengths of Wellness Way doctors is, yes, you will pay for their time, but yes, they will sit down with you and they'll give you ideas, real concrete ideas as far as what you're supposed to do. And they're not going to say this: just avoid sugar, because everybody knows that they should do that. But a lot of times what they don't know is they don't know how to implement that within their life. So you need the appropriate testing, the appropriate plan, the appropriate lifestyle, but then the appropriate follow-up to make sure that you are following through with what you need to do, and to retest and to make any kind of appropriate adjustments based on where you're landing after all of that happens. Okay. So what are some of the things that you probably need to address? Okay. Probably need to be addressing your digestive system by looking at a lot of inflammatory triggers. There's so many inflammatory triggers that are going on. Really, the only way to know is to look at a food test, look at a stool test. Also address if you're getting the type of food that you're eating and the type of, proteins, fats, carbohydrates that you're eating. Also making sure that you're getting adequate protein intake as well. This may involve a no sugar diet. This also may involve getting your stress under control, changing how you sleep, and yes, getting adjusted. Yes, for some people, getting adjusted has a tremendous benefit, on them as well. And this is why that x-ray that I showed you a couple slides back, an adjustment's not going to help that person. What they need is they need a long, slow adjustment, which is why they're going to need probably some heel lift under their foot, because you can't adjust that dysfunction out. And yes, what about exercise? Absolutely. Okay. People come to me and they're like, I want a bikini bod, but then they go and they end up eating all those foods they're not supposed to do. And then they're doing all the wrong forms of exercise. And so if you really want a bikini bod, you may have to work really hard over the course of the year in order to be able to achieve some semblance of that. So, yep, you're going to have to be able to exercise. You need to change a lot of things, which is why I lead to this. And yes, you're going to have to change your lifestyle. This is what I tell people: you're going to have to change your lifestyle. I don't want you becoming a lazy supplement taker. And in fact, I always tell you this: if you're not willing to change your lifestyle, then at some point I'll fire you as a patient. Okay. And it's not because I don't like you. It's not because I'm trying to be mean. I don't want you wasting your time, and I don't want you wasting your money, thinking that you're going to get some kind of clinical result when in fact you're not putting in the work, as well. So you are going to have to change your lifestyle. And just remember this: it's your responsibility. You're not 1 teaspoon of turmeric away from your health being perfect. So I think that a lot of people, they come to the inflammation event and they think there's just some kind of secret hidden supplement that they haven't heard of yet that's going to turn their life around. But in reality, they have been doing a lot of bad things that their doctor has led them into for a long period of time. And they just think that because we're so medicated, we think everything is about a medication, everything is about a supplement. No, it really is about lifestyle. And a Wellness Way doctor is one of the best things to help you turn around and start changing your lifestyle, because they are experts in physiology. And in fact, I have extra training too when it comes to exercise and when it comes to a lot of other things as well. So I might be able to give you a little bit more input as far as how you should be exercising and training and things like that. But just understand, you're not a teaspoon of turmeric away from your health being perfect. That would just be disingenuous with anyone actually saying that. Okay. But the biggest thing that I want you to do is I want you to start thinking differently. Start thinking differently. That's why I always say this: you can't solve your problems with the same level of thinking that created the problem. You cannot solve your problems with the same level of thinking that created the problem, that got you into that problem in the first place. You're going to have to start thinking differently. One of the most powerful things that you can do is you can listen to this broadcast. You can listen to it over and over again. You can go back and watch some of the old broadcasts that we've done, because it will help you start to think differently when it comes to your health. This is why a lot of medical doctors don't like this broadcast, because we're just helping people think differently from a different perspective, rather than just think, well, it's just you have this symptom, you have this on your lab, and it's just take this. That's not how the body works. The body does not work linearly. The body works as a Swiss watch, which is why there's so many people taking so many drugs and so many medications, and they still feel like garbage. You cannot solve your problems with the same level of thinking that created the problem. You have to start thinking differently. And if you are someone from the Chicagoland area and you want to start thinking differently and you want to look at a different approach when it comes to your health, then one of the things I want you to do is I want you to get to our next inflammation event, which is going to be a week from tomorrow, Tuesday, August 12th at 6 o'clock p.m. This is an in-person event, because right now, guys, I'm only working with people in person, which means if you're from the Chicagoland area, get to that event to help you start thinking differently about where you need to start when it comes to your health and how we start revolutionizing healthcare as we know it. And so healthcare today, this is why, so many people, and they're like, we need more healthcare. We need more healthcare. I'm like, no, we don't. We lead the world in the amount of drugs and medications, and we have the most amount of chronic degenerative illness than anywhere else in the world. We don't need more healthcare. What we need more health. And if you want more health, where you're going to go is you're going to go to that inflammation event coming up a week from tomorrow, August 12th at 6 o'clock p.m. All you got to do is you just go ahead, click on our Linktree profile, because you'll see it on all of our socials. Click on that and get registered for it. Click on that link. It's free to attend that event. We have a gift for you at the end. And click on that link, get registered for it, and I'll see you guys at that inflammation event coming up a week from tomorrow. I can't wait to see you guys there, because 90% of the people there are coming from broadcasts just like this. And so this is why I love going live, in order to help people to look at things from a different perspective. So fabulous after 40. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. My wife is living proof. But if you're just not feeling the way that you are supposed to, then get to the inflammation event so that you can start living the way that you are supposed to. But yes, you're going to have to change some things in that process. So is it possible to feel fabulous after 40? Yes. But there are a lot of people that have to change a lot of things. So the reality is guys, you got one life to live. Why not start living your best life right now? So guys, thank you so much for joining this live broadcast. I appreciate all of you. If you don't follow us, please give us a follow, and please, for up-to-date information, because we're always putting out great new content. And if you like this video and you know that someone needs to hear it, please share this video with other people. They would appreciate a helping hand. And you never know, is that, it's you never know how far-reaching something that you say or do today will affect the lives of millions of people tomorrow. So not only be a great example, but also be the hope that people need in order to start living a better life. So guys, thank you very much for joining this live broadcast. Make sure you like, make sure that you share. We'll see you next week for our live broadcast. Be well, be blessed. Remember who you are. And we'll see you guys very soon. It's great to see you guys. And I'll see you guys.